Dear students, now let us look at one of the examples for economic order quantity. Economic order quantity, as we know, is actually used for achieving economies of scale. So we discussed that it was one of the aggressive inventory policies. When we say it is aggressive inventory policies, we mean that the trade-off is actually between the holding cost and the ordering cost. Now let us look at the example that will actually illustrate that what kind of benefits and what are the characteristics of EOQ which we need to understand for further developing other inventory models, which would of course be based on that inventory economic order quantity. Now let us take an example. If you can see, now let's take demand to be deterministic in nature. We have discussed that economic order quantity would work for those type of products for which you can forecast reliably. Now, when you can forecast reliably, you would have the demand estimate with you. Yes, we know that when you say you can estimate the demand, that means the demand is forecasted reliably, the demand shape is known, as well as the demand size is known. So let us take one example of computers, and demand for some specific type of computers is, let's say, 12,000 units per year. So the monthly demand, roughly we can say that would be 1,000 computers per month. Let's say we are not assuming that there is some kind of seasonality in that. The unit cost is, let's say, $500 for one computer unit. The holding cost fraction is 20%. That means 20% of the unit cost would actually be the cost of holding that unit. Now, for that example, let us recall the basic formula for economic order quantity. That is, for your recalling, we actually denoted demand by R. So the number of orders per year, that means the number of setups per year, would be R by Q. The annual material cost would then be the unit cost multiplied by the annual demand, that is R. So in notation form, we can write it CR. The annual order cost would be, that is, the total setup cost for the year would be R by QS, that is the number of setups multiplied by the setup cost for one production run. Then the annual holding cost would be Q by 2H, or we can say that H is actually equal to the fraction K into C. So we can say the annual holding cost would be the average inventory or the cycle inventory, that is Q by 2 into K into C. So what would be the total annual cost function? The total cost function then would be CR plus the setup cost, that is R by QS, plus the total holding cost, that is Q by 2 KC. So this total cost function is actually important. We need to actually remember that. So it is a sum of the material cost, the setup cost, and the holding cost. Yes, of course, you can remember the economic order quantity formula. That was the under root or square root of 2RS over KC. Now we will be putting the values in order to understand that scenario. Let us our fixed cost as to be 4,000 per order. Now our Q star, that would be the economic order quantity, according to that formula would be 980 computers. By putting the values, you will come up with the lot size or the order size of 980 computers. So that means in every production run, we should be producing 980 computers. That will actually achieve economies of scale. Economies of scale in terms of my holding and setup cost. So what would be the cyclic inventory then? That was actually the average inventory, that was Q by 2. So if Q is 980, the average inventory would be 490. And what about the total cost? The total cost would then be, if you put the values in the total cost function, you will get 97980. That would be the total cost. Now please remember, when we say it achieve economies of scale, I assure you, if you use any other Q other than 980 for this specific data, your total cost would essentially be higher than $97,980,000. That means this will give you the minimum cost. No matter you produce higher than that or lower than that, your cost would be essentially higher than this point. मतलब क्या है कि if my economic order quantity is 980 here, मैं 1000 प्रोड्यूस करूं, मैं 500 प्रोड्यूस करूं, मैं 1500 प्रोड्यूस करूं या 10,000 ही वन गो में प्रोड्यूस कर दूं, उन सब लॉट साइजेस, उन सब क्वांटिटीज़ की जो टोटल कॉस्ट फॉर द ईयर होगी वो इस कॉस्ट फंक्शन के मुताबिक दैट वुड एसेंशियली बी हायर देन दिस पॉइंट. So this is what we need to check. This is what is the main proposition here. Economic order quantity actually achieve economies of scale in terms of cost. It will minimize the total cost function.